Fatima,
Sir.
you can start with proceed.
Okay.
Yeah, who's comparing?
Start with the who is comparing this session?
Ma'am. Yeah.
Yes.
Safalia.
You can Safalia, you start with the welcome speech and all.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. We all know that it's our 5th day of the international webinar Aloft on the theme of dislocations and fragmented identities, social work responses. It gives me pleasure to extend you a very warm welcome on behalf of the Department of Social Work, Sri Shankaracharya University of Sanskrit, Kaladi, who has clubbed all of us for Aloft. I would now request Ms. Aparna to please welcome our distinguished guest and participant to this webinar. Over to you, Aparna.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I welcome all of you to the Aloft International Webinar on Dislocations and Fragmented Identities, Social Work Responses. We had engaging sections during the last few days. Today, we are here for the panel discussion on the topic Institutionalized Identities. Let's welcome the speakers, Dr. J.W. James, Assistant Professor, Department of Psychiatric Social Work, Center Institute of Psychiatry, Ranchi, and Mr. Titus Pokura, Senior Director of SOS Children's Villages of India. On the behalf of this institution, Sri Shankaracharya Sanskrit University, Kaladi, and all of us present here, I am truly pleased to welcome all of you to the panel. I would also like to welcome the head of the department, Jose Anini sir, and our moderator of the section, Ms. Fatima. Also, I welcome all the teachers, scholars, and students who are gathered here for the same. Once again, I welcome you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Aparna. I would like to introduce the moderator of the event, Ms. Fatima P.S. She is the Assistant Professor of the Department of Social Work in Main Campus, Kaladi.
Okay. A very good morning, all. So, good morning, all. So, I feel honored to be here as a moderator for this session of our seminar. And first of all, I express my gratitude to the organizers of this seminar for considering me and giving an opportunity. And as we know, this today is the last session, the last day of our international webinar, Aloft, Dislocations and Fragmented Identities, Social Work Responses. I hope that all the participants enjoyed the last previous sessions on various topics. And today's session is on the institutionalized children and identity conflicts. I expect all of you will utilize the session at maximum level. So to the introduction, many children around the world spend their life and grow up in the institutions instead of living with their families without their siblings. So the care institutions, the child care institutions for both children in need of care and protection and in conflict with law, reform schools and institutions for physically and mentally challenged children are some of them. So these children are deserted, neglected, or found helpless due to various factors such as social, economic, familiar, or personal reasons by the parents or caregivers. And these dislocations or alienation from their family or a personal space may have a significant impact on the children, on the formation of their identity or a role. So these children may lack or feel uncomfortable or feel unable to meet basic needs of their life. So today we are privileged to have eminent speakers to deliberate on this issue. They are Mr. Titus Puvankulam and Dr. J.W. James. As we know, both of them are experts in working with the institutionalized children. And I'm sure that they can really enrich us with their knowledge and experience. And without much delay, may I invite the first speaker, Mr. Titus Puvankulam, to the session to deliberate on this issue. A warm welcome to you, sir, once again.
Thank you, Professor Fatima. Thank you very much for inviting me to this session. And I appreciate and I congratulate the university, Sri Shankaracharya University, Sanskrit University, Kanadi, and especially the Department of Social Work for organizing such a wide participants. So now I can see there are 41 participants. And it's also a very socially relevant subject, dislocation and its impact on personality, identity of children and young adults. I'll be speaking mainly about institutionalized children with a specific reference to, children in care and protection, and also children in conflict with the law. And I'll be also sharing some experience we have in SOS Children's Villages and some special programs we are organizing to mitigate such deviant, personality factors. Yeah, with that small note, let me share a small presentation. There are only about 6 slides. I won't be take much time on my presentation. We will also have some time for question and answers if some of you would like to. Looking at the reasons for, everybody is aware of the reasons for dislocation. Some of them are, from nature, like natural calamities. Recently, we have experienced severe floods for 2-3 years continuously in south part of the country, earthquake, pandemic, tsunami. Then there are also man-made violence like, war, riots, separation because of chronic illness, death of parents, disability. And I also would like to call it as irresponsible parenthood. Many times, it is not only because of the above said natural or, factors. There are also a lot of people who are irresponsible in their parenting and parenthood. Migration of labor for employment, and especially, maybe in and around our university also. There are a lot of people from other parts of the country coming for labor. And what's happening with their children? Sometimes, we can see them on the street. Their rights are violated. And ultimately, some of them end up in CCIs, child care institutions. There are economic reasons, social stigma. Sometimes, an unwed mother, even when they wanted to keep their children with them, there is economic factors, there are social factors preventing them to keep their children with them. And what is happening when they come to a CCI, a child care institution? Frequent change of caregivers or care homes. Because of the sometimes even JJ Act stipulations like, we need to have a foundering home license up to 6 years. Then we have up to 10 years, maybe they can live together, but no separate accommodation. After 10 years, boys and girls cannot live together. They need to, even when they are siblings, there's a provision in the JJ Act that no siblings should not be separated. But even then, they need to move to a different home for boys, girls separately. And then after a particular age, they need to go for aftercare services. And aftercare services are very limited in our country. So all these are, even within separation from a family, biological environment, natural environment, even when they are in a home for children, whether it is special needs children or differentially abled children, or a care home for child offenders, even within that home, there are different separation happening at different stages of their life because of age factors, gender factors. There's also a challenge of people getting transferred, deputation, promotion, resignation and leaving. Maybe there is a very caring, loving caregiver, and the children are attached to him or her, and after some time, they have to go. And many of them consider it as a kind of difficult posting. Nobody want to come to a children's home, or whether it is a government home or a CCI. There's also a shortage for a deficiency of trained co-workers, skilled people who are working with them. And many of these homes, there's a discipline is very much required, but the way they are disciplined is in a very harsh manner. There's too much of a schedule from morning, say 6 o'clock to evening 10 o'clock. Every hour is planned, or sometimes there's no schedule at all in some homes for children. Sometimes children don't have a time of their own, kind of a 0 hour where they can do what they would like to do, or doing nothing even. Sometimes, this kind of compartmentalized, disciplining and schedule also has a negative impact on children's personality. So many times there is no stimulating environment, because when we interact with the children from a home for children and the children from a biological family, I must also say a functioning biological family. Don't think that everything is okay with a biological family. There are many biological families or natural families, dysfunctional families. But when we compare children of a CCI with the children of a normal family, there's a lot of spark in the eyes of children from the normal families, which is sometimes missing. There's a lot of hope. There's a lot of confidence. Why this is not lacking? It's not because their IQ is, their intelligence level is poor, but because stimulation they are getting in early childhood. The words of appreciation, the stimulating environment created in a home for children is not up to the mark. For example, in a natural family, the mother take them for shopping to the market, whether it is vegetable market or a fish market, or maybe going to the bank. By this kind of learning environments, children learn a lot of things. They improve their skills. They learn how to live outside, the so-called street smart. This kind of opportunities are limited to children who are living in care homes. Absence or incorrect legal document. This is a major, because when we talk about identity, what is that? We have an ID card. Passport is a very important ID card. Date of birth is a very important, ID. Surname, for example. There are a lot of things which is, helping a young, caregiver, a person who is going out of care. Sometimes they don't have. Even if they have a document, the document may not be correct. Then they have n number of difficulties. For example, sometimes a child who is living in a care home have a certificate stating name of father unknown. It itself is stigmatizing. The people who are responsible has not looked into these details, and they go with a certificate saying that no, father unknown. My bullet point is, all these are pulling down factors for them to go outside the world and stand on their own. There is also a stigma attached to a child of an unwed mother, or a child of a, maybe HIV patient, for example. It's coming down, fortunately, but it was not the case maybe about 5 years before, 10 years before. And being brought up in a child care home itself is a, stigma. I mean, we have, this very, not so good word like orphanage, street children, child of an unwed mother. These names itself are, very demoralizing for young people when they grow up, as they grow up in the child care institutions. So when we talk about, identity, when we talk about, fragmented identity, these factors in the institutions are contributing to us, sometimes a low self-esteem. The young people feeling, I am not as good as others, I am not in par with others. which is a pulling down factor for them. There are certain things we are doing in SOS specific where we try to reduce the impact of such pulling down factors. First of all, we are conducting a detailed social investigation report before a child comes home. You see, these are some terminology we have developed over the years. We call it as a child coming home rather than admission. Our co-workers, trained co-workers, will be going and meeting the child in their natural environment, from the relatives, from the police, from the neighbors. We will be collecting maximum possible information and documenting it in the social investigation report. Then we have a consistent and qualified caregiver. We call them mothers who are taking care of these children. They are the first contact. Normally, a mother will be continuing with this child for about 10 to 15 years till the child moves to a university hostel or a college hostel. We also have the co-workers, sharing the fatherly responsibilities so that this child has somebody to relate to. We have a module called New Child Entry Program. Whenever there's a new child coming to the SOS Children's Village or a CCI, there are different activities we are organizing with the children so that the child is comfortable. First of all, the child is formally introduced, formally welcomed, for example. When a child is going to a children's village home, the mother will be giving an arati with other children, for example. And when they come in, the child is given some sweets and the child will be sharing it with other children. And the child is introduced to all children in the family. Child play with them, maybe indoor games like caroms. Sometimes they go out and play together. We have an evening assembly where the child is introduced to the whole village community so that the child is no more a stranger there. There are planned different activities to make sure that the child is well adjusted. Sometimes, when new children coming, especially children who are exposed to the street, there's a tendency of running away initially. But once these programs are there, the child feels more comfortable and at home at this new environment rather than an unsecure environment. There are children coming with a lot of deficiency in learning because they have never been to a school, some of them. Some of them have been to a school, but they don't have the required level of skills to go to their age-appropriate classroom. So we have a preparatory curriculum, especially trained teacher in a very child-friendly environment, teaching them basic arithmetic, alphabets, language skills. So these children are prepared to adjust well with the required level of their school, in the class in their respective schools. These are children who are coming with a lot of traumatic past. They have seen their parents taken away by tsunami waves. They have seen their parents stabbed by in a fight and killed by some of them, in adults conflicts. So they need a lot of opportunities for building resilience. We have a module called resilience building activities. There are about 44 activities children do at different times so that they have this opportunity. We also have specially designed a program for PYD, we call it Program for Youth Development. They participate in different activities to build their skills, knowledge. By these activities, we prepare them to live outside independently. There's also this MA and MN test findings and to choose a course and career. All young people who are in high school level will be administered this multiple intelligence and multiple nature test so that, first of all, we identified nature, their intelligence, and that they are promoted to go for such courses and careers. We also have a care promise in SOS Children's Villages of India. We improve their language skills. For getting a good job placement, they need to have different languages, especially English speaking skill. We make sure that all caregivers leaving our care program have minimum computer skills. We also make sure that they have 5 documents. They have a correct date of birth certificate. They have an Aadhaar card. There are 5 legal documents we ensure that these youngsters acquire before they leave the care program. And we also make sure that every care leaver leaving the care program will be having a minimum one professional or vocational employable skills, so that they will be able to find a job, a decent employment and a salary, which will help them to have an independent life. So my point, what I want to stress is, it is true that there are scientific studies proved that there is an influence, most of the time a negative influence on the personality of the young people because of institutionalization. There are also many positive factors. The negative impact can be minimized by providing consistent caregiver. That's very crucial. It is not that somebody is coming for 3 years on deputation, somebody is 3 years and then they go. We need people with passion, people with the training, and people with professionalism to mentor. It's just like parenting elsewhere. The parents are passionate about their children. They are ambitious about their children. They also provide support their children to achieve this, goals in life. In the same way, in the institutions, whether it is for corrective purpose or development purpose, we need to have people with the skill, training, and professionalism. Language skills, technical skills, employability skills, together with the legal identity documents, can improve the self-esteem and identity, reduce the crisis of the identity crisis of these young people when they go out. If they have a decent job, if they have enough salary, if they have all legal documents correct, they have communication skill, then they think that we are as good as others. There's also an active need for participation of children and young people in this decision making. Sometimes, we adults in many institutions, adults decide for the children or young people, and it's part of the child rights also, the participation of young people affecting their things affecting their life. If we involve them from the very beginning in decisions affecting their life, they take responsibility and they think that this is my decision, and they will ensure that this is. Thank you so much. That's what I thought of sharing this morning. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mute you, Fatima. Do unmute you. You are muted.
Oh, sorry, sir. So we're talking about the children who are living in the child care institutions, especially in need of care and protection. So, we're mentioning about what are the reasons behind to reach the child care institution. What are the various reasons behind it? And the factors they are fragmented or dislocated or alienated from their family to the same institution, to the child care institutions. And he was comparing the benefit of staying in a child care institutions and and his experience. He was telling his experience regarding the special initiatives that SOS to develop and to develop children's self-esteem and resilience. And as we know, the deprivation of the parental care, security, support, and warmth, early separation from the parents may affect their cognitive and emotional development. So there are, as Sir said, there are a number of researches available worldwide which focuses on the negative influence of the children or the children they are staying in a child care institutions. And at the same time, and to the contrary to this, in some in developed countries, it has been observed that the children in these institutions have a better chance and space for cognitive development. So in his experience, he was comparing the other childcare institutions and the SOS village for the what are the special initiatives they undertake for the betterment of the children. Some of them are new when a new child entry when a new child comes to the family, SOS family. What are the things happened in there other than when compared to other orphanages, or so there are resilience building activities, and there are program for youth development and preparatory curriculum. That means all the programs or the initiatives took by this SOS villages is child friendly. So it's like a family, it's a living in a family for the children. So what is important is to overcome all these issues. The other issues is his suggestion is to maintain a consistent and qualified caregivers in the institution. So that will make more comfortable for the children to live live within the family, like a family with their own mother. So it was a wonderful presentation, wonderful deliberation from the side of Mr. Titus sir. So I think it's a time for another speaker. So I invite Mr. James, Dr. James, to deliberate this issue.
Okay, thank you, Fatima. So to start off with, I would like to thank the Department of Social Work, Sri Shankaracharya University of Sanskrit Kaladi, Professor Joe Santini, Fatima, Ms. Reshma, Dr. Reshma, and all the organizers to provide me this opportunity to share my thoughts in this panel discussion. It was a very thought-provoking session by Mr. Titus this for me. So thank you so much for that wonderful speech. So I'll talk about a little different area. I'm not very sure whether persons with mental illness have been covered during this, wonderful conference. So I would be talking about how persons with mental illness and how their identity and dislocations, that happens. So during this thing, I don't have a PPT that I would be sharing, but I would make sure that all the points that I have in mind are conveyed. So let me just try covering some of these aspects. So to start with, persons with mental illness. So the word definition of persons with mental illness, according to the new Mental Health Care Act, talks about persons with substantial disorder of thinking, mood, perception, orientation of or memory that grossly impairs judgment, and it impacts the capacity of an individual. And so an individual loses their ordinary demand to fulfill whatever life demands. So this mental condition is associated with some type of illness which is impairing them to function. So talking about persons with mental illness, if we go back in time and see, now there has been a lot more thoughts about how persons with mental illness or mental illness is also recognized as one of the physical illness, like. But if we go back in time, if there was a person with mental illness, the first thing that the people in the community would do is isolate them. This person does not belong to this community. He is different. And they had different beliefs. They thought that a person with mental illness is having some demons possessed in them, or some type of an infection which can be spread to all the others. So they need to be secluded. Or they've done something so bad because of which they've got this mental illness. So there were different belief systems that went on in the community, because of which people with mental illness were put into torture and cruel treatments. So dating back, starting from a very long time, people with mental illness were isolated. So if we look back in time, institutionalization of persons with mental illness started way back in 8th century. That was the first recorded psychiatric institution. But most of these are custodial cares. They were not really taking care of persons with mental illness, giving them treatment, but just secluding them and putting them in a place where the community feels safe from them. So that is how these psychiatric institutions started. So talking about a psychiatric institution, it's basically most of these institutions had few things in common. They had high walls, they were away from the common people, and they were enclosed. There wasn't any easy way to get out of this place. So institutionalization was like basically secluding them, removing them from the community. In the process, what happens is they, as an individual, are removed from the identity. They are secluded, they given a different identity of a person with mental illness. So that's how they identify. So proper psychiatric institutions started somewhere down in the 13th century, more towards London. And initially, to start off with, they had persons with mental illness, but didn't know what to do with it. So most of them were, either chained because they were aggressive, or they weren't given adequate food or clothing or proper movements because they didn't have manpower to manage them. So lack of stimulation, lack of funds, all these, started to cramp these institutions. So because of which there were overcrowding of mental institutions. And dating back to India, even in India, actually psychiatric institutions or mental hospitals, we call them. So they started back during the British era. And in Kolkata and in many places, they started mental health institutions. And initially, to start off, it was people with mental illness who were serving the British Army, or who were Indian Sipahi working for the British Army, who had some type of mental illness. They were put into these institutions. So again, it was just a manner of secluding them from the community so that they don't cause any harm. So the institutionalization had a lot of effect on people. And I'll come to how this actually changed over a period of time. Before that, Goffman, a famous social scientist at that time, so he intensively worked with individuals. He came up with this concept of mortification of self. So mortification of self is where, through physical and social abuse, individuals with mental illness lost their own identity. They didn't know who they are. So it is a process where individuals were stripped of their past roles. They might have been a doctor, they might have been a businessman, but because they had mental illness, they were secluded and their roles were stripped off. They no longer were addressed as their identity that they had earlier. They were, a patient like every other person in that place. So this modification of self happened in long-term institutionalization. And psychiatric hospitals had this characteristics of a prison, basically like a concentration camp or a prison with less movements, or people generally did not want to say that they've been inside a psychiatric institution because there was a lot of stigma attached to it, because their normal social roles were also taken away. They also came up with this concept of institutional neurosis. So institutional neurosis is more, like a concept of social and life skills are deprived, and the result of adaptation to go back into the community, they don't really had that social skills. They did not really have, because once they institutionalized, by the time they go back into the community, almost a decade has passed. They no longer know how the community works. Everyone else looks different. Everyone else knows a lot more than how much they knew. So adaptation became a lot more an issue. So depersonalization and the loss of one's identity were key features of this institutional neurosis. So many people feel that if an individual has gone into an institution, like a psychiatric institution, a mental hospital, so they feel humiliating because they've been admitted over there, and it can be stigmatizing, and many people do not feel it very therapeutic. because most of them are forced into it. They are not willingly going and getting admitted. So many patients upon admission, they really, when they are there for a long period of time, they don't really feel very comfortable about it. And they become over a period of time dependent on the structured environment that is inside the hospital. I'll give you an example of a case where Ms. S, who is currently in one of the psychiatric institutions that I've been working with. So she's the 43, 45 years old. She's been in the hospital for the past 20 plus years, almost 25 years, close to 25 years. That means early in adulthood, she was admitted because of exacerbated symptoms. She had an outbreak of severe mental illness, something like schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, where the person lost contact with their own self and hallucinating. So she was admitted, given treatment. Within few months, she recovered. And what happened is the family did not want them back. They did not give a proper address. And there was no one else to take back this patient. She couldn't be sent back because we didn't really know where this person will go back. And the chances of her being homeless is more likely because there's no place where she, and being a female, chances of being abused becomes a lot more common. So in this context, she continues to stay in the hospital. Over a period of time, there have been multiple chances where we've tried to integrate her to community-based homes, where there are other persons with mental illness or common elderly people in the community, but she can be outside the hospital. But the process has just failed. Whenever we try to place her outside, within few weeks, she'll say that, no, sir, I don't want to be there. I want to come back to the hospital. I'm not feeling comfortable. So what has happened is, it's a thing called as a social breakdown syndrome. They no longer identify themselves to the outside world because the outside world looks so strange. And a lot more responsibilities have come upon them. They are, they have a schedule over here. From morning to evening, these things happen. With time, there would be food. With time, their personal spaces that they feel belong within the institution itself. So once they go out, they don't really have that belongingness. It becomes very difficult for them to adapt. So it's a gradual process that we have to work around with, and not everyone fits in. So for some people, even the institution has become their identity. They continue to be here, they serve other patients, they help them. And in the process, they have become part of the institution also. So, but there are a few individuals who do not really come up, like at least the case of Ms. S was, she can help other individuals. She is engaged throughout the day. She does something to look up to. But there are many patients who don't really come up to that level. So they become an identification with the sick, a stage where, usually the person says that, takes up a sick role. I'm sick and I can't do this. So I'll just continue to be like this. And so all this process happens within the institutionalization. So talking back from the past, like mid-1950s, there was this concept of de-institutionalization. More in the West, not much in India. So de-institutionalization was the process of closing down a lot of these psychiatric institutions. So in the West, there were many institutions. Unlike India, we have very few. And all of these places were overcrowded. So de-institutionalization, where the hospitals were closed down, was a process which was because of multiple things. One, there was advent of psychotropic medication, so people with mental illness could be treated, and they no longer had to be admitted. They can be given the same treatment outside. And apart from that, there was a lot of advocacy for treating people in the community rather than hospitalizing them, institutionalizing them. And least restrictive environment and the high cost. Imagine the cost of running a hospital. It's a very big cost. Running an institution is a very big cost because you have to pay for their food, for the manpower, for the caretakers, for managing the institution. It's a lot of cost. But giving medicines outside the hospital is like a very small proportion of that cost. So you can treat a lot of people in the community by just giving medicines because of the advent of psychotropic medication. So there was this concept of de-institutionalization. So a lot of costs were reduced, but many countries did not really plan this well, because of which many people were discharged from the hospital. They went into prisons, or they went into other shelter homes or long-term homes, or they became homeless. So these were some of the things that happened over a period of time. So many of these individuals did not really gain back their identity. They just lost it. Once they were outside the institution, they were lost. They didn't really know what to do. And they ended up in being prison or some other place. So even in the current scenario, a lot of changes have happened. Psychiatric institution comes as the last resort when nothing else works. That time people come with the concept of coming and admitting them. But still, there is a lot of misconceptions about treatment, and there is a lot of delay in taking treatment, because of which many people come to institutions or treatment at a very late stage, where the illness has become very chronic. So stigma and discrimination because of institutionalization even now exists. So the place where I stay, if I have to commute from the city to this place, if I say the hospital name, okay, Central Institute of Psychiatry, people will be wondering, what is this place? They don't even know this. If I say Pagalkhana, chaliye, they'll say, come, let's go. So people identify the place with that name. So this whole place is, identified like this, because there are two mental institutions side by side. So even now, people have this misconception. Once a person is put into a hospital, Pagalkhana, Bhatt Ashpatri, or Paithikara Hospital. So these are names that they give, and these are things that they identify with. So because of this, what happens is a lot of stigma is attached to mental health care, and people don't really feel like seeking out treatment. And this delays treatment, and a lot of issues happen with it. But anyways, over the period of time, I think we have come to a notion where there is a lot more, speech about asking and seeking help, talking about mental illness, and in the process, earlier treatments and community-based care can be given. So being in a psychiatric hospital, most people feel that if I've been to a psychiatric hospital, if I've been admitted to a psychiatric hospital, most of the characteristics that an individual, identifies with self are affected, like the prospects of getting married, prospects of getting a job, not giving a role in the family, they become ridiculed. So these are things that are very personal when it comes to, an identity of an individual. So when these are affected, people choose not to go to a psychiatric institution. This is a lot more when it comes to women. Women already having the double burden of taking care of, most of the households, and they are the least that are being treated also. If we look at the number of admissions that happen in this own institution, it is just 1/4 of how much male members get admitted that female members get admitted. That much less, because people do not, but the prevalence of mental illness is almost equal. But the number of people seeking care is just 1/4 of male members. So that is a lot more of female members have mental illness, but are restricted within the community because they are locked inside the house. They don't really go out, so people don't really know. So it has a lot of impact on their quality of life, on their own identity, what they want to do. Then coming to the concept of homeless people, a lot of people who are homeless, who get admitted to the hospital, a significant number of them improve and they are reintegrated. So somewhere their identity can be gained back. But there are still a lot of these numbers who have lost their identity in the process of having the mental illness and then being homeless, and finally finding an identity within the psychiatric institution also. Although being a patient in a psychiatric hospital, people might feel that it is a punishment, there can be stigma, but it can also be an opportunity for the person to have personal growth, reduce their symptoms, have an opportunity to go back and work or find their roles back into the community. So the good part of being or needing hospitalization is far more than the negative parts, because many people get benefit with the treatment. The stigma is there, but the benefit that people get out of the treatment is a lot more when compared to the negative parts that institutionalization brings forward. And finally, the current scenario of Mental Health Care Act. So it talks about the right to community living. The treatment should be provided in the community, and there is right to protection from cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment. And also the Act talks about advance directives, where if a person has mental illness anytime in future, they can write how they can be treated and cannot be treated much ahead. There is a concept of nominated representative if a person loses their concept of having the capacity to taking treatment decisions, then a nominated representative can take treatment decisions on behalf of them. And basically the whole idea of community-based treatment and rehabilitation is something that the Mental Health Care Act talks about. So it is a lot more advanced. So people getting treated in the community would get a lot more benefit rather than coming to an hospital. So final case example, I might take 3-4 minutes more. So there was this individual which during my PhD time was homeless in the community in central Davangere in central Karnataka. So this individual was homeless, roaming around in the village, had a long beard, long nails, multiple clothing, a typical person with mental illness in the community. And so through someone like, typically this would be a person who should be admitted in a psychiatric institution, given treatment, and then rehabilitated, which will be a process of 6 months or a year, depending on whatever facility was available. Because there was community-based treatment that we were providing, so we gave medicines to the nearby shop who happened to provide him food. And he told that I'll give him the medicines because he comes and eats food from my hand. So I'll make sure that he takes medicine, and after that I'll give him the food. So next month when we go back into the same community and we are asking that shopkeeper, he told, as this patient we were inquiring. So he told, sir, the medicines that you gave actually helped him. He became better. So he's going and staying inside his house. He's no longer roaming around. So you were really shocked, because within a span, and this individual was homeless for 3-4 years. Imagine if he was institutionalized, ideally institutionalized, he would have taken another year to get out of that institution. And the span of community-based treatment within a month to 2 months, this individual improved quite some. Then within next 6 months, his wife came back, he started farming. So he gained back this identity which he had lost due to mental illness. So community-based treatments can actually help even reducing, these type of derogatory treatments or need for long-term treatments, because the time taken for providing community treatment would be less, and people can access treatment much more early, which can actually help in reducing the disability and the loss of identity of individuals. So one of the benefits that I see about the recent budget also, it talks about the digital mental health, digitalizing mental health. So it will be widespread. A lot more people would be able to access, because almost everyone has a mobile now, and mental health will be as easy as accessing mobile. So hopefully in the coming years, we'll be able to reach out to a lot more population who are requiring help. And finally, as role of social workers, I would say our role is there in each and every step, be it an institution, identifying individuals who have issues with their human rights, who have lost their identity, trying to reintegrate them back into the community. As a whole in the community, reducing stigma about mental health, providing awareness, literacy programs, even in the form of protest and advocacy, and also in the community, having social contact with persons with mental illness in reducing stigma. So there are a lot more roles that a social worker can play in this context. So with these thoughts, I would like to conclude what I would like to say. So we have a lot of role, and over the years, I think this role is going to change vastly, and we also have to adapt to it. And hopefully, let's see. I feel that there is a lot more benefits that we will gain over a period of time. So thank you.
Thank you, James, for a wonderful presentation on your topic. So I was concluding this Dr. James session, and he was talking about the basically on the institutionalized, like psychiatric institutions, how the psychiatric the attitude of the people towards a psychiatric institution and all, and how they affect the people in the institution, in the admitted in the institution, and what are the stigma regarding the mental illness or a mentally ill person, and how they marginalized in the society. And we can say that stigma is when someone views in a negative way because you have a distinguishing characteristic or a personal trait that is thought to be or actually is a disadvantage, a negative stereotype. Unfortunately, negative attitudes and beliefs towards people who have mental health condition are common. So stigma can lead to discrimination, and discrimination may be obvious and direct, such as someone making a negative remark about your mental illness or your treatment. Or it may be unintentional or subtle, such as someone avoiding you because the person assumes you could be unstable, violent, or dangerous due to your mental illness. And he was talking about the people's perspectives about psychiatric institution and how the people changed, the attitude of the people changed over time. And one major change has been seen in the in current day, and people are becoming more accepting of mental health problems and more supportive of people with issues of mental illness. And we all always talking about the we have some awareness about the common mental disorders nowadays, such as depression and anxiety. We always says that I have some mood swings and anxiety issue, or I'm facing or experiencing panic attacks, and like that. So even if there are changes, but there are yet the attitude of the people not changed fully. So when you look into the society, even consulting the counselor also has been seen as a mentally ill. That person is mentally ill, and if he's showing something deviate or some change in the behavior, they say that okay, go to a counselor. They are going to counselors. They are going to consider counselor seen as a sin. Like we can see that the stigma is present still here. So he has mentioned some history of psychiatric institutions and the concept of institutionalization and de-institutionalization. And finally, how the people try to create their identity in the institution, and is mentioned, and what are the factors that can be utilized for maintaining them in a creating their identity. So I think it's enough, or we can hear more from our panelists. So this is time for discussion. Can we move to discussion, sir? Mr. Titus, sir?
Yes,
Or
please.
James? Okay, this floor is open for discussion, and you can add your questions in your chat box, or either you can directly ask to the panelists. You all welcome.
First of all, I really acknowledge Titus sir, who is the zonal director of SIS, and a person who has really dedicated his throughout career. After his post-graduation from Rajagiri, he has joined with SOS Children's Village, and he was the director of the center for a long time. And then he moved to Bangalore, and now he's working as a zonal director. And the way he has contributed to the SOS Children's Village concept in India, as such, is that much recognized in the system. So we were happy to have you here. And I have a question specifically to Titus regarding this, because this conference is deliberating on the identity formation processes and how the dislocation of an individual is affecting. And that dislocation here is institutionalization process of the child. And at a very young age, the child is being taken into the SOS Children's Village, or children are taken to the special homes, either in special care and need of care and protection, or maybe in conflict with the law. So I have my concern is this: how this dislocation from their natural habitat really affects their formation of the identity as a citizen in the social order. Second, after living for a long time in these institutions, they usually after the age of 18 or after this conviction period, they are back to the social system again. And how they can reintegrate, that's another big concern, into the general social order with this identity concerns. So that is my question to Titus, sir. I will put one question to James also. Then I think both of you can answer with basically. Dr. James is currently working as assistant professor in School of the Psychiatric Social Work Department in Institute of Psychiatry in Ranchi. And also he has done his master's from Coimbatore. Then he did his MPhil from Ranchi. Then he did his PhD in NIMHANS on specifically on community rehabilitation system for severely affected psychiatric patients. And his major area of interest is basically working with severely affected psychiatric patients and also in community mental health programs, specifically with the rehabilitation system. And his experience and his so for academic as well as practical contributions to the system is really something which is remarkable. And also the same concern is there, James. A person who's normal for a long period of time in life suddenly gets into a psychiatric episode, and he slowly loses his habitat. He or she may be taken to a psychiatric hospital for a period of time as admission or treatment, then may be taken to the rehabilitation center, as we call conventionally the IBR system. Different types of IBRs are there. Institution-based rehabilitation centers are there. And maybe after a period of staying there, they will be again, we all have that passion and desire to take them back to their natural habitat. So you can find different levels of identity shifts, normality to abnormality to psychiatric hospital, then to a rehabilitation center, and again, maybe back to the normal order. And you may have relapse cases too. So how this dislocations makes the identity of a psychiatric patient fragmented, and how social work as a discipline very much established with psychiatric system responds to that. So these are my two concerns. These are concerns also for the group because majority of the participants are students. So that will be really good for them. So thank you for being with us, both Titus sir as well as James sir. I think now we can deliberate on or we can respond.
Thank you, Dr. Yosanni, for that very interesting and very relevant question. We have seen children at a very young age coming to childcare institutions or correctional institutions. It's very difficult for them to adjust initially. For example, there are children from tribal belt, hilly area coming to a kind of modern, well-planned, CCI, or there are children from coastal belt coming to a institution. For example, all of us know that in coastal belt, even for a toilet, they go to the seashore only. Many years ago, there was no proper, toilet facilities for our coastal people. So I have seen children finding it difficult to use even a toilet because they are not used to it. There was a requirement for training how to use a Indian closet, for example. keep away the slang in their language. Sometimes, in different parts of Kerala itself, we have different, way we speak even Malayalam. And then the food habits. I remember a very funny, experience of, a boy from the Trivandrum, Valyathura, that coastal belt came, and the SOS mother was, giving them a fried fish. And he said, hey, come on, this is not possible, because the quality of fish was so bad. They said they use it for fishing. They don't eat it. I mean, the other side of the story. So it is very difficult for children, even adults. For example, when we are going to a college hostel for the first time, even when there's no ragging, we are finding it difficult to adjust with the new environment. So it's all the more difficult for the children to adjust with. It's a reality that there are challenges for these young people to adjust with the new environment. As you know, institutional is the last resort. In our care programs, as a fifth option, it's also kept institutionalization. Even when we have started de-institutionalization many years ago, I am of the personal opinion that India is not still ready for de-institutionalization. Look at the streets. How many children are there? If the system, because we have many dysfunctional families, incapacity of the parents. So coming back to our focus, the social workers, caregivers must facilitate young people, children, child offenders to adjust with the new environment. And the best interest of the child should guide all these actions, all these processes we are doing. Wherever possible, maybe temporarily these children need a care of a CCI. Once the parents their illness is over, their income is better, our plan should be to reintegrate. And ICPS and the different WCD departments have come up with a lot of programs, community-based programs. The social workers' focus should be to facilitate this social security program, so that the family is able to avail this, and as far as possible, the child should be going back to the natural biological environment. But there are certain advantages also. Think of a place like, very remote tribal settlement, maybe in Vattavada in Idukki or Wayanad, where there is no school, there's no transportation, there's no technical skills. For example, NSDC, Skill Development Corporation, is having n number of programs. At every district level, there is a center where these young people can come and get trained, whether it is in hotel management diplomas like food production, or maybe NTTF is doing a lot of job-oriented courses. They coming to this CCA has such advantage also. They get exposure. They get a job training. They get employment. They have a better possibility in life if they come and utilize these opportunities and then go back. This dislocation is not always bad, provided they are properly oriented and make use of this. I mean, just to give an example, when I go to my native, even now, I am son of Chakosar, my father, because I am away from this place for about 30-35 years. So many people don't know me there. They refer me with, you are the fourth or fifth one of, Chakosar. That's my identity there. And I love it also. I am not ashamed of that. I am not uncomfortable with that. Sometimes, what is happening, if they are getting an employment in the locality itself where they are grown up, they have a tag. Okay, child from such and such CHA. We know that Anath Shala, there's this term Shala, like children of Shala, this sense of children of an orphanage. As he was telling, Pagal, So it's better that our young people are migrating to cities. For example, sometimes we have a lot of people from Kerala working in the Middle East, working in US. They come home for a vacation, and the greatest challenge is the dust. The greatest challenge is the traffic jam, the slowness of they also have problem of dislocation. But the idea is to have enough social skills to manage with the situation, cope up with the situation, and go forward. Is our CCAs are preparing them for life. For example, aftercare, after 18 years, most of these CCAs will be sending them out with an exit order from CWC. You are on your own. Is this young people are capable of having a job, income, managing themselves? We must prepare them to. So directly answering your question, yes, Dr. Josani, there is, difficulty for children to adjust with. There are a lot of possibility also for them. For example, the policy of the government is also to, rather than going for degree, this degree certificate is not going to give them a living. Of course, our children also should have decent education, skill development, employability. That will give an answer to them, their independent life outside. I don't know whether I tried to answer your questions. I don't know whether I answered it fully. Thank you.
Okay. I will come back later, sir. I will listen to James also. We will listen to James also.
Thank you, sir. So the idea of persons with mental illness being in an institution and first getting a mental illness and then seeking treatment. So I want to directly link it with where social workers can intervene in different steps. So social workers in the community, like if we are able to identify persons with mental illness at the earliest, then treatment can be provided in the community, because out of 100 people who get mental illness, severe mental illness, I'm saying schizophrenia, bipolar, almost 70 to 80% recover and go back and go back to their roles. They fulfill their roles just with medication alone. So if that can be provided in the community, if early identification can be done, as social workers, it's our role to identify, train people in the community to identify persons with mental illness and seek help. So using community health workers, training them in identifying persons with mental illness, educating schools, literacy programs, and Anganwadi workers, different areas. So social workers can be trainers to employ these individuals to identify. Like if an individual has TB, ASHA workers has the responsibility to identify, or someone who has pregnancy. So taking them and coming for treatment. Like this, if mental health also can be integrated in the community where they can be identified early, and social workers can be the persons who can train these individuals in identifying and streamlining the treatment. This is the first step. So despite of that, there'll be some number of people who will require psychiatric hospitalization, because not everyone would have a milder level illness or would have come early enough, or would have illness that cannot be managed by just medications. For them, we require hospitalization. So in those cases, social workers have this role of making sure that these individuals are comfortable when they are institutionalized in the hospital, and making sure that the stay doesn't prolong too long. We don't want individuals to stay for a year for getting treatment. Within a month, if the treatment is given and if their roles can be brought back within the community, like within the hospital also, like if they are able to go to the occupation therapy, engage themselves throughout the day, little by little their roles start getting back to normal, their social interactions start getting back to normal. They have provided more opportunity to interact, to mingle with people. So gradually shorter duration of stay and more social life, even institutionalization, can help them going back. And some proportion of individuals would have to go into a rehab center after the hospitalization, because they haven't got adequate skills to go back into living in their community or back in their homes. For them, integrating the process of expanding their life into having a structured day and also gradually going back into the community little by little. So taking up roles of working or fulfilling their role as a housewife or as a domestic helper, or whatever roles there. So gradually the process of going back as the final target should always be done. Be it start from the community, or be it in the hospital, or be it in the rehab center. So social workers play an integrated role in all these steps. So as a treatment facilitator to individual who directly provides treatment, skill training, to reintegration and coordination within the community and family members. So we play multiple roles in different places. So that I feel that, if we get trained according to what our role suits, then I think we'll be able to.
Yes. So definitely, both of you are clarifying this issue. It always, I think, I will stop very quickly. Always, I think the transitory institutions are labeling people as their identities. The an orphanage is a transitory institution. A psychiatric rehabilitation center is also a transitory institution. A jail is a correctional institution, also is a transitory institution. But we are labeling them with that identity. So these institutions have to get deconstructed in that line, in its identity system. And how far we can really equip the agency of the person who is living in an orphanage, living in a brothel home, or living in a jail, or living in a psychiatric hospital, or living in a psychiatric rehabilitation center. How we can really empower the agency of that person, the person within, the self within, the identity within. Usually what we do is we make them skillful, socially manageable skills, or employability skills. Apart from that, I very strongly believe we should work on the construction of the rational identity of that person to stand for that person. I think that is empowering the agency of the person.
Your observation is correct, Dr. Josanne. Fortunately, there's a positive trend happening, because earlier most of these CCAs were having one solution, one program, and those who want come and take this program. For example, if you take the example of SOS, we were offering long-term family-based solutions earlier, SOS villages. Now we have graduated from that level to a basket of care solutions. For example, locally based, need-based, right-based, solutions for, issues of not only children but also, youth, and we also facilitate government social security. Especially in our family strengthening program, we facilitate it's on a preventive mode. We facilitate the vulnerable families to avail government social security so that sustainability is better. We help them to get a ration card, for example. People who don't have the ration card. We make sure that a widow who is eligible for a widow pension is availing it if there is difficulty for getting it. So my point is, organizations are expanding their scope from one particular service to a basket of care solutions, number one. Number two, client-based solutions. Rather than offering a solution available, you take it based on apart from that, what is the local, to give you an example, for example, at quite near to your university, there are a lot of migrant laborers coming from different parts of the country. And what is happening with their children during their time when they are on work? Is there a need for a daycare center? Is there a need for a medical facility for those children? So maybe as social workers, the department can take initiative to conduct a survey and recommend to the government there is a need for this, because even if they are from different parts of the country, they are also people with a need care and protection. These children in the street, or maybe in subhuman living conditions, that's a local requirement there. So rather than offering a pre-designed solution based on their need, finding solutions will be a better option. Thank you.
Can I ask?
No, no.
Yes, teacher, you can. Yes, proceed.
Okay, thanks for those two very interesting and very brilliant elaborations on institutional dislocations and also identity formation. So I have one question each for each of you, and thanks, Dr. Titus, for showing that even when the institutions provide a very overarching identity, like children who are staying in a care institution, even within that institutions, there are multiple of other identities and stigmas, even within, like you were saying, how within the institution there might be a child without her father, or a child with an unwed mother, or children of AIDS survivors, and so on. And with each of these micro identities will also be having stigmas attached to them. And as we all of us know, that stigmas also arise out of the social hierarchies, stereotypes, and prejudices. So I want to know what course you would recommend, whether concealing these identities, like concealing that they don't have a father, or that concealing that they are the mother of a unwed mother. Would that be much better, or would you recommend creating institutions where such social stigmas itself are questioned, where the children are taught that there is nothing to be ashamed of having an unwed mother, or that that's not a very sinful kind of thing, that not having a father is not the greatest catastrophe that you can have? Because I am asking this question because 20 years back we were actually working in the sex workers movement, and some of the sex workers wanted to place their children in the institutions, but they also did not want to conceal from the institutions that these children, their children were, their mothers are sex workers. But the institutions insisted that once the children are placed in the institution, mothers should never visit them or take them home. And in the end, my friends actually were working with the children of sex workers. They actually ended up building a new institution called Chilla, where this politics of sex work is discussed openly with the children, and they took a pride that their mother had undergone such hardships to raise them. And like many marginal identities are doing them, the pride march by the gay or transgender community, the pride that the Dalit identities attached to them. So instead of concealing the identity, they are actually trying to articulate a political vocabulary again, in which they can take pride of their own identity. So that is one question to you. And Dr. James, earlier in the seminar, we had a very heated debate on how mental health professionals actually are not very sensitive towards this branding of normal and abnormal, and especially in the context of transgender or gay politics, and all these categories has been rethought and revoked in the context of such political mobilizations. So even when we are saying that people having mental illness, whether we are saying that it's just a illness, it's an episode of illness and it will be overcome. So but we are also as professionals, as we have this power of creating these identities. So how much as a psychiatric social worker, psychiatrist, would you be free to let go of that authority and invite others, the users of the mental health facilities, make these decisions? We have this, we know that we have the knowledge, we can see whether they are ill or not. These are the privileges that comes with our training and our authority as psychiatrists or psychologists or psychiatric social workers. So are we ready to let go of it? And
thank you, Professor Reshma, for that detailed question. Dr. James, I hope you don't mind. I take the first chance because I have another meeting lined up. I may have to leave in next 5 to 10 minutes. Specifically answering your question, Professor Reshma. relieving or telling about the identity is a personal choice. It must be the choice of the person. I am a product of such and such CCI. For example, we are very proud to say that no, I am from IIT, I am from IIM. Huh? Why? There's a positive impression attached to that. But that is not the case as of now, saying that I am from such and such CCI, I am an ex inmate of. Even see that word itself, inmate, is a bit stigmatizing. So it is their personal choice. I mean, we have some very successful caregivers, people who are graduated from our organization. They say they are working abroad, they are medical doctors, they are successful engineers. And when they are interacting, they themselves, we never talk about it. They are our ex-students. It is their choice to announce, I am happy and proud that. For example, we have conducted a study of our settled youth. We called it as tracking the footprint. And many young people were quite confident to say that, no, I am proud that I am from SOS Children's Villages, or I am from a CCA, for that example. But it is their choice. And stigma, for example, and unwed motherhood is not now not socially accepted in some part of our country. For example, if you go to Shillong in Meghalaya, where matriarchal society is prevalent, if they have an unwed, if there is an unwed mother and a child before marriage, they are very well accepted in the family. So it's more of a culture specific. Maybe in other parts of the world, it's okay. They don't even recently the government has made a choice that it is up to the mother to decide whether to announce the name of the father. A unwed mother can have the choice to conceal the identity of the father. So I think that's a positive change. Slowly, as our society evolve, the lady will choose whether I should say this or not. Personally, I feel that the earlier the better. These young people accepting the reality and living with it is more good for them than concealing it. Otherwise, they'll be always having a fear whether somebody will be knowing about it in the university hostels, in the housing society. If they don't talk about it, they have always a fear factor. Maybe someday somebody will be knowing about it. So it's difficult for them to announce it. But once it is accepted and announced, that's all over forever. So my personal opinion is that they accepting it, and we must facilitate it at the right age when they decide. That's my personal view on this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So to answer, both Professor Joseph and Dr. Reshma's questions, Professor Joseph had one of the concepts that I always encourage social workers and other mental health care professionals is to talk about recovery when we deal with persons with mental illness. So the very definition of recovery talks about coming up with a purpose or a new meaning in life and grow beyond the effect of mental illness. So that is something that we have to encourage individuals with mental illness to, have their own meaning and purpose, even if they have mental illness or not, if they've recovered or not, coming up with a new meaning for their own life. That's where recovery is. It's not something like an end point, like, yes, I've recovered. It's a journey. So you continue to go on that journey of recovery, and you define whether I cannot always date back and say I used to do all these things. Now I'm not able to do. If we keep looking at that, then there'll never be the concept of recovery. So it's about finding new meanings and going through the journey. And coming to Dr. Reshma's thought on what I understood was about disclosure, whether an individual with mental illness should disclose about their own illness. So many individuals do not really feel comfortable talking about it because there's so much stigma attached to it. Someone in my office has an episode of depression or has panic attack. would never report to the employer that I'm having panic attack or I'm having depression because of which I want to leave. They would report some other medical reason. That is how stigmatized it is, because the very question that the employer would ask is, does this individual still have the capacity to do this work? Okay. So, or they will be having this notion that no, this individual is no longer fit to continue the work. So these are things that are attached to the very concept of disclosure, because of which many individuals do not really feel comfortable talking about it. But over a period of time, we've seen that even celebrities to sports persons disclosing about their mental illness and saying that it is important. It is important to take a break. It is important to talk about mental illness. And this disclosure gradually, like, I have a problem with my eye. I need to, go through surgery. I'll be comfortable talking about it. Same as this, it should be comfortable for individuals to talk about taking treatment for mental illness. After all, it's another part of our, human function. So if that is affected, we need to take treatment then. So talking about it over a period of time, I think we as professionals should also encourage, but it doesn't mean that I go and say everyone that I went to the hospital, I took treatment. It's about disclosing it to specific individuals who actually require that information. Might be to the senior supervisor or the employer, or to the person who you are going to get married to. So it depends on how well this disclosure is. It should be individually catered to. It cannot be generalized to every individual. So we need to encourage disclosure to some level, but again, it should be encouraged. Otherwise, we are no longer, nowhere going against reducing stigma if we don't talk about disclosure. So I hope I answered both the questions.
I think it's almost time now.
Yeah, we will see to it, because we have another session, Reshma.
Yeah. Because I had some more questions, but I think I will keep it.
Yeah, okay. It's an area where we can have, we are also trying to facilitate. Fatima?
Sir?
Yeah, I think you can slowly wind.
Yeah. So we are very happy to have a very vibrant eminent speakers for discussing on the topic individualized identities. It was really an enriching process for us, and because both of them are shared their experiences related to their areas. So it was a wonderful session and I'm very privileged because I'm sitting as a moderator and my classmate is sitting as a panelist speaker, Dr. James. So I'm very happy to be here, and I'm again telling I'm very privileged. And I'm first time I'm interacting with the Titus sir, and sir has delivered a lot of things from his experience, and as Reshma teacher said, I had a lot of questions to ask because I'm working in the area of the children in the care and protection, like working in the lived experiences of the children, adolescent girls who is living in a yatim khana. Yatim khana means it's a religious organization that means the child care, same as a child care institution. So I have experience in the this psychiatric institution. I have done my MPhil from CIP with James, and it was a wonderful session. Again, I'm telling it's a wonderful session, but we don't have much time, so I think it's a time to stop or conclude this session. And I'm inviting the my student representative for a vote of thanks. Thank you, sir. Thank you, James.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to
I take the privilege, since your time is up. Let us don't go to the formality of thank you, because the other speakers are waiting. Thanks a lot. Thank you, everybody.
It will be only 2 minutes time, sir.
Please.
So it's also acknowledging our students too.
Okay, please.
Sir, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Amrita, go on.
Pleasant morning to one and all. We have been visually witnessing a very absorbing
Mhm.
Amrita.
I got stuck
Having
with.
discussion on the topic institutionalized identities with a heart full of joy. Hello.
Yeah, continue.
I would like to thank our key resource persons of the event, Dr. James and Mr. Titus Purkalam, who were gracious enough to accept our invitation and bless this moment by sharing their thoughts on institutionalized identities. Thank you, both of you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, dear Fatima ma'am, for moderating this wonderful session. And genuine sentiments of gratitude are conveyed to all our dear faculty members who consolidated this impressive assembly. My friends who have made this webinar a reality need to be congratulated for their great effort. With appreciation extended to Ms. Abarna and Ms. Kripa, who have made this gathering a special one in their own way. Once again, on behalf of myself and all my dear friends here, let me offer my profound gratitude to each one of you. Thank you all. Have a pleasant day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Amrita.
Yeah, thank you,
so much.
Titus sir. Thank you, James, for
Thanks a
being
lot.
with us.
Bye.
It was really
Thank
good.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amrita. Fatima.
Sir,
Good.
off yellow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think our next resource person is already present here.
Yeah, we will move to the session.
Okay, sir. Recording ഒന്ന് സ്റ്റോപ്പ് ചെയ്തിട്ട് ഇടുകയാണെങ്കിൽ ഒന്നും കൂടെ ഇടുകയാണെങ്കിൽ നല്ലതായിരിക്കും because the maximum is 1 GB. So
technical time.
Yeah.
So technical team, can you please stop recording and then we will
Yeah.
and stop the live